Hey, what's going on? I just read an article on Gronkowski, the tight end for the Patriots who retired, and how he's financially set because he didn't live a big lavish lifestyle. I want to talk about that and just the basics of personal finance and playing it right so that you can have the freedom and a life that comes with the advantages of money. And I want to offer some reflections on that right now. Coming to you from the hotel. I'm working some day shifts and now I'm switching to night shifts in the ER, and here I am chatting with you about this. I want to show you check out my shirt. You dig it? Just a normal day. So I read this article, and there have been a lot of things written before about how Gronkowski, even though he's kind of flamboyant and out there and a fun guy, he's financially responsible. So he doesn't have a big sports car. He doesn't kind of have that little bit kind of douchey image of male success in a suit and this and with the blonde, big boobed girlfriend. And apparently he has lived off of his endorsements. That's what the money that he's used to fund his life and his expenses. But he hasn't ever spent even a dime of all of the millions of dollars that he got in contract to actually be a football player. That's incredible. That is incredible discipline. That's incredible perspective for him to play the long game with that, so that now at 30, he can retire and be financially set and be in a position where now he can invest and he can do all kinds of things, but not have to climb this ladder that, the rest of us have to do to get to that kind of a spot. Good for him. The temptations and the expectations, and I think about, what's the expectation of that kind of an athlete? Definitely that he have a sports car, right? That he have some kind of image that is associated with stuff. The sports car, the suit, some big house, just all of these things. And he's clothing, designer expensive clothing. And he talks about in this article how he wears the same jeans from high school. Kind of like poor man. Good for him. I think one of the basic principles here for everybody is being able to, this is really simple, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to watch all these TV shows and learn how to invest your money and play the market and day trade and all of these things where you're probably going to lose your money. I think if you do just some basics, but number one is being able to live under your means, being able to spend less money than you make. Number one. If you're piling up credit card debt, if you chronically can't do that, you will be in trouble. You are not going to win the lottery. Chances are 999 million of us are not going to win that lottery, that one and whatever is. And that kind of thinking in the long term, destroys people financially. So good for him for abiding by principle number one, which is just living under your means. The second one is, and if you've ever read this book, The Millionaire Next Door, it really contains that philosophy in there, and I think it's great. I read it, 20 years ago. And I gave it to a friend, a doctor friend of mine, who had over $300,000 of debt. And at this time, even though she had all this debt, I remember she had this Land Rover, and she had a little bit of a lifestyle that I think probably was even driving her more into debt. So I give her this book called The Millionaire Next Door. And the basic gist of it is that the people you think are millionaires probably aren't. They have the image, the facade, that they have all this money and rich and cars and whatever, and they're probably broke. They're probably living on credit cards. There's so many people that put forth that image without having the real thing, which is the wealth that you can, that they want to. They put up the image that makes it look like that, but many of them, it's only a facade, and they're broke. And then the other side of that too is that the people that look like they're not millionaires, just the normal people next door who drive the old Chevys, and who wear clothes without buying the newest, latest, greatest stuff, those are the millionaires. Because they they save their money, they spend it on different things, and it's not, the high roller lifestyle that I would expect from a Gronkowski. good for him. Or what we're constantly bombarded, to make us feel like we need in order to be enough, in order to be man enough, to be successful enough. You got to push back against that. And if you do, and you learn how to save your money and how to invest it appropriately, just put it in an index fund. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I don't even think you have to do brokers. I've got so many financially successful friends that all they do is they put it in S&P 500 or the Dow or some index fund, and they let it ride, and that's it. That's all you need. Sure, there's other ways to make more money if you have other options, and if you're rich and you have smarter people and all these other things, and you can invest in real estate, have your own business. There's a lot of ways, there's so many different ways to make money, but the basics, spending less than spending under your means, living a lifestyle, not feeling the pressure to live that big lifestyle. I would really recommend checking out that book. So what does that, I'm going to give you, there's a couple other things that I think are really good ideas. Track all of your expenses on credit cards and then look at it every month. When you look at it, you can kind of start to get rid of, I don't need Comcast. I can get rid of that and cut that bill in a fraction by just doing Amazon Prime and YouTube TV or whatever. So, so you can continually evaluate your expenditures and make sure you're spending money where you want to spend money, not being completely cheap and not living anything, but trimming the fat like that, using online software like, what is it called? Mint.com, where you can put all of your bank accounts, credit cards, loans, everything in one place. You have it in one place, those things, and then you can review it all there. And I recommend both of those things. I do those. I have all that stuff in one place. But here's the exciting thing. I'm 40 now, and I've been thinking about this stuff for 30 years. I was lucky my dad started to teach me about saving when I was young. And once you do this, it's hard in the beginning. It's always hard to live under your means. But once you do this for a while and you start to kind of pile up money and resources, you can buy some real estate that then, are assets that produce more money. It affords a lifestyle where number one, you don't have to work as much. You can get to a point where you work by choice, not by obligation to pay the bills. You can get to a place where you have money and you can start to fund not only your own dreams for yourself and your family, but you can fund meaningful projects in the world, Just there's so many possibilities. Like I remember I went fishing with my dad in Northern California, and there was this guy who had a handful of $1 million, and he bought this property that had part of a river going through it that had trout, and he built it up and he made it in this really cool experience with a private chef where you went and you could fish during the day and they cooked for you and there was a pool and it was a really nice thing. And I was like, wow, this guy created that out of nowhere. And how did he do it? Like, what was part of that? Not just having the vision and doing it and executing it. And he enjoyed it because he met people when he did it, but he had money. He got to a place where he had the money and the resources and he was able to do that. These all come back to these basic principles. Again, number one is being able to spend less than you make to live under your means. And then in the long run, in the end, later in life, you can do some really cool things. So I've always dreamt, there's so many things that I've dreamt about doing, random things. Like I want to own a movie theater one day, just like own a movie theater and have a fun production about it. And people get dressed up and give them golden tickets. And I don't know why I want to own a movie theater, but I kind of do. Make it different. But create some kind of a retreat place or a sanctuary or something that just isn't there before. Like contribute that to humanity. And having money and being able to manage your personal finances, long run when this stuff pays off. Not just being able to live a free lifestyle and travel around and have nice things. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then also to really power a mission to help the world. When I went to, I worked in a hospital in Tanzania in East Africa in residency. Gosh, it's been 10 years. And this hospital had maybe like 160 beds, a whole bunch of doctors and nurses, and a whole, operation. And what would you guess how much money it took for that hospital to operate in a year in Tanzania? I would have thought millions of dollars. It was $150,000 for everything for 1 year. It's incredible, right? So you could get to a point where you had enough money, you could fund something like that saves countless lives every year. What a legacy that would be. All right, I'm starting to ramble. I'm gonna wrap this thing up. But good for Gronkowski. Good for him for not feeling like he has to live that anybody else's expectation of what it means to be a successful professional football player. I will say this, he's retiring now, he's financially set up, but his body was beaten up. Like, there is a cost to that life that he has, that there's a cost to it. I mean, CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, it's a real thing. His risk for dementia early is high. I wonder, I'd love to interview him and be like, hey, how much of you retiring is because of your body? Because you were, getting injured a lot and everything. The guy was an incredible player, but football's brutal. I would never choose to do that to my brain at that level. I didn't have that option at that level either. 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing. But good for him for financially playing his cards life, and I'm excited for him to live a great life, age 30, for hopefully decades and decades, and live a good life, enjoy it, and make an impact. There you have it. Dr. Larry Live Weekly. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the article. I'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.